and 12.
Yeah, so, yep. So I can't see you guys because my phone won't transfer video while I'm driving.
You're driving?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a long drive. It's a long drive to Trenton, Missouri. I might as well take advantage.
Yeah, good for you. Good morning.
Morning.
Good morning. How are we this morning?
Good. Chris, you turned us all into 26s.
I turned y'all into what?
26s.
Here's an interesting side note to that. It made me think of this. We used to do what we called personal ministry assessments for people who came into our churches. And so it's this whole long thing. And one of the pieces of it is a Myers-Briggs inventory. They go up and take it. And over and over and over again, our people scored as INFJs or ENFJs, which are, so the EI is how you, it's like how you are energized. Are you energized from outside in, that extroverted piece, or from inside out? That's that introverted piece. And then you get, see if I can remember these, you get the NT and sensate. So it's Ian. I have to keep going through my head that way. So an N is, the second one is how you process it. So, or, you know, how you receive information actually. And so are you intuitive? That's an N. Or are you more sensate? Like your senses are, you rely on your senses, what's around you, if you will. And then ENF. And so then you get the FT, and that's how you like process that information. So if some of us are feelers, and that does not mean we're emotional, because my mercy gift is off the bottom of the chart. I do not have a mercy gift. And so I don't, I have a lot of compassion, but mercy is a whole different thing. So anyways, that, so some of us are feelers. We feel, empaths are feelers, or we are thinkers. We take and we need to really think through that information. And then the last one is you're either a J or a P. A J stands for judgment. And this is how what you do with the information. So a J, this judging, people with a J like things in order, that they take it and this is the way it is. They make a judgment about it and then they will act on that judgment. Or it's judgment has such a negative connotation all the time. It's like we've processed it, this is it, you know, we've taken all the parts to it and we're going to move on it. Whereas P stands for perception, or a perceiver. And I'm always saying that P stands for fly by the seat of your pants. My husband is a strong P, and they don't, you know, chaos, they can work in chaos, they can, you know, move on the snap, what is it, the drop of a dime, all those pieces go into that. So we would do these inventories, and over again, we would get these ENFTs or INFTs that, you know, an ENFJs. So they, those are the people that receive energy from outside themselves. They're intuitive. They're feelers more than, you know, these, okay, this is the way it's going to be. They just kind of move from what they're intuiting, and then those J's, they like things ordered. Some of them were P's, so I don't know, but we thought, I'm saying all of this because we found all of this very, very interesting. And why was it that we were attracting those kind of people? And what we realized is ENFJs, and one of the lowest number of the population. So I don't remember what the highest, most people are such and such, but we realized the people we attracted were spiritual thinkers, seekers. And so that really is that, intuitive, empathic kind of piece. So I think that that's the translation here about leadership styles. What is it that, we want to do? We work consensusly, right, in groups and whatnot. And when you think in seminaries, quite honestly, I've sat on for years the commissions on ministry, and over again, you find the people who came forward for ordination wanted to be chaplains. It's like, what are you thinking, y'all? And so seminary tends to teach us theologically, they expect us to come out theologians of sorts, but also the other part of this is not about church growth. It's not about building dynamic churches. If you get to take 1 or 2 classes out of your whole curricula, you're really, really lucky to get any of that. It's about how do we take care of people? What's compassion? What's care? Blah, blah. Does that make some sense?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So it's good to know those things about ourselves, of course. And then that other side of that is just, everything has ups and has downs, right? So you figure out how to avoid or control, have enough control over the process. And it really is about process. A lot of us are not processual. And if we're P's, we're not at all processual, like on that Myers-Briggs inventory. So you really have to watch what you're doing. And as I said, like about having systems where every voice can be heard. It's how can we do that where we're able to keep some kind of decency about that, right? And Tanya, I was looking at the comments this morning and I had to giggle about your comment about working with parents and and how nice with the children. And my daughter is a part-time at the elementary school where our youngest grandbaby goes. And she's the attendance secretary. She's been there for the last couple of weeks full-time because the full-time attendance secretary is on holiday. And so so Aiden also is playing Little League. And so we were at this game one night with him, and one of the little boys on his team is just a bully. He acts like a bully. I don't want to label him, but it's just bullying type of behavior. And Shannon said his mom had come into the office and went off on them in the office the other day. And she said, you begin to see what's going on, right, in the kids. But so I don't know, that's what came to mind when I saw that. Wow, you're lucky, you've got some great parents there. I know.
Well, so we work with a lot of kids in the community too. And so we've intentionally tried to do trauma training within our church. So like I've had trauma training and just dealing with kids of trauma. And there's a lot of those things that play into dealing with parents as well. So we just kind of use some of those things from time to time as we're dealing with some of those bully parents too. So, and the kids, like just ways to kind of redirect the bully and figure out a way to deal with what maybe the real issue is underneath it all. So that's the one thing I've learned from all that, is that just because someone's a bully doesn't mean that there isn't like a reason why their life turned that direction and they decided to be that way. So it's seeing the other side of it all too. So that's just so we try to get our volunteers all trained too, so that they know how to deal and cope. But
where do you get trauma training? That's a new one.
There's some, so the book, The Connected Child, I don't know if you've heard of it. I'm looking for it on my bookshelf because I happen to be in my office today. It's by Karen Purvis.
Okay.
She has an organization and they have Hope for the Journey as a conference they do once a year, and it does training. And then I've taken some additional training through different agencies through that, but it's just on trauma for kids. And there's like an ACEs score, which is adverse childhood effects. And so we're working on like a coalition in St. Joe with a bunch of agencies to start teaching parents how the trauma their kids go through affects their health later and how we can change that as children and do some stuff. So that's some stuff that they're working on up here in St. Joe. So just through different agencies like that, and we offer a conference every year at our church for trauma, for parents that have experienced it or kids that work with foster kids or adoption. And we open it up to the public and just have it here. And we did it online last year too, so anyone could take it. We're just really, really passionate about making sure that people understand how that all plays into your child and how it affects their behavior and their learning and their sleep and the whole process. So that's something else I do on the side.
That's awesome. That is
Yeah.
awesome.
We have, my passion is helping children in our community. And I was telling the guys, I have to hop off in about at 20 after because we're delivering beds with Sleep in Heavenly Peace today. And we've already delivered 2 this morning and we have another one to deliver still. So,
Okay.
but we build and deliver beds to kiddos that don't have beds in St. Joe. So that's our.
Let me grab something off my printer and then we'll move. Okay, my printer decided not to print. So, okay, I'm going to do another screen here, which you'll not see me do. Okay, so I wanted to go over, I made mention of something that I put up there in section 9 in the resources, and it's about the relationships that we need to have. And one quick piece is that in relationships, we really need our how we order our relationships. God is first, we're second, then our family, and however you define family, some people's family includes friends or is friends, and then the layer down after that is church. And church is not God. And that's one of the biggest mistakes ministers make. It is grievous that we think somehow church is God. And we have a relationship with church. And then if we're really lucky, we find at some point, wow, this spirituality thing is just not, spirituality, I'm a spiritual person. No, it's about relationship with God and getting the order straight, which can really make some churches mad, but that's just the way it is. Okay, so on this, on that handout, what you're going to see is it's going to talk about relationships first. I just found a typo after all these years. And then there's this piece called, there it is, ordering our relationships. One of the other pieces that we forget is, or we don't maybe know, is that the great commandment, we love to throw that around, love God with all the heart, your heart, soul, mind, strength, and then love your neighbors as yourself. The problem is we live in a culture and have for decades where we no longer know how to love ourselves. And you may have heard me say this before, if I treated my neighbors the way I treat myself, I'd be in jail probably.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Right. So
Amen.
what we have to do is put ourselves first so we can love our neighbor. Okay, so love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, strength. Love yourself with all your heart, soul, mind, strength. Love your neighbor with all your heart, soul, mind, strength. Remembering it's not blah, 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 because the scripture says, and the second is just as important as the first, right? It's just the same. So, okay, there's that. Okay, going down to the second page. So Len Sweet wrote this book quite a few years ago now called, what was it called? 11 Indispensable Relationships You Can't Be Without. And he lists these different relationships. So Nathan, and if you know your scripture really well, then you can put these in. If you don't, then I'm going to challenge you. I want to challenge you to look up who these people are. But so you get Nathan, who kind of edited their work. You get Jonathan. So who's your true friend, right? David's best friend, Jonathan. Jethro, who was Moses's father-in-law, who's your butt kicker. You get Timothy, who's your protege, or also known as who are you mentoring? You get Barnabas, who was Paul's encourager. He also mentored Paul, but he also encouraged him. Peter and Paul, who's your Yoda, right? Who's mentoring into you? Deborah, right, in Judges, who's got your back, or who's your back cover? Who's got your back? In some traditions, they would call this your armor bearer. You know, who's your armor bearer? Who's watching out for you? Zacchaeus, right? Zacchaeus was a wee little man. Who's your reject? So who amongst yours in your circle is what others might call a reject, because this is the person, this is the ticket into those places where people don't know Jesus. I mean, we live, what does Bill say? My bill says that we live in a Christian ghetto, that everyone we know within, I don't know, it's something like 90 days of becoming a Christian, nearly everyone we know is a Christian. And so that precludes us being able to do evangelism, true evangelism. So having a Zacchaeus, somebody who's outside, for me, who was my pagan contact? And that happened to be Nancy Tanner Thies, who then made the connection for me to the bookstore up here, Heart, Body, and Soul, and then has allowed me to do evangelism on that plane. And then Rhoda, who's your Rhoda? Who's your little one? Rhoda, Peter, when Peter was released from jail by the angels, and he goes to where all of the believers are praying, then he knocks on the door and Rhoda comes, but everybody thinks he's dead. And so Rhoda, he knocks on the door, Rhoda opens the door. She's like, oh my gosh, slams the door in his face, runs into her family, tells her family what's, or the gathered, what's on. They're like, oh my gosh, there's a ghost. And then the door gets open and there's Peter. They didn't believe, but she believed. Right? Who's your little one? Who's the one who's still naive, who hasn't been jaded by the world? Lydia and Lazarus, who are your VIPs? Lydia was rich, right? She sells cloths and makes dyes cloths. And then you get Lazarus, not Lazarus, the friend who was raised from the dead, but the Lazarus, the story that he tells, who's poor, that Jesus tells, who's poor. So who are your VIPs? Both those who are rich, who do you have who's rich? Who do you have who's poor? And then Jerusalem, where's your place? Where's your home base? Where is it that you go to find solace and quiet? It's not necessarily your home. And a lot of times it's not your home. So where is that? And then Len offers one more. He includes one more in these necessary relationships. It's not in the title. He calls it the invisible 12th. And that's the Holy Spirit. So these are relationships that we need to have, 11, and then of course the Holy Spirit and Jesus. So these are those relationships that keep us whole and keep us healthy. So that's going to be one of the forum questions, is going to be, fill that out. Who are these people in your life? And I taught this, the first time I taught this was 12 years ago, 2009, in coaching. I used to do clergy coaching in all of the clusters in Northeast Missouri, so 5 a month. And I did this in the 5 clusters that year. And no one had all those filled in. But again, to be whole and healthy with relationships and really be able to do the best work that we can do, we need to have those in place. So I want you to be thinking about that. And that's then, if you've looked at the piece more about the final assignment, then, or you may remember that that's going to be part of that final assignment, or your support systems. And while it doesn't ask for you to put all those out, I am asking that for this week. Questions, I just flew through them. But this is the first time I've added it, and it just came to me the other day. So it won't be in the vid lecture for this week.
I just hate to see that Tanya has to leave.
I'm trying to hop on my phone.
Oh,
Hey, there I am.
there she is.
So let me end here, go there.
Okay.
And
And
then I can.
Recording in progress.
Oh, now I've got it.
I love when that happens. Lots.
Yep.
So wow, Darren, you need to put your picture up there. We can see Tanya's picture.
I can't because it says safe driving mode, so it won't let me do it.
No, I know you can't. I know you can't. Not while you're
Okay.
driving. And to be able to put a picture in there, you have to go up to Zoom to your account. or
Gotcha.
online. Yeah. And then you can do that.
But
So-
I tell you what, I know I had a bully moment at church this week.
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
Do you want
That it didn't affect me directly, but my mentor, she is speaking this Sunday. I mean, she's preaching this Sunday at our home church, and the one of the ladies on the search committee decided to, because the new minister's coming to have a meet and greet,
uh-huh.
she invited him to speak and do the benediction.
Ooh. Ooh.
She didn't talk to the worship committee. She didn't talk to the minister, nothing. She just invited him to do this. And I'm like, well, so Sunday was quite amusing because the gal that runs the worship committee, she doesn't mince words. And she pretty much told her, she read her the riot act. So she let her know that what she did was completely wrong. And plus, but I'm just hoping that our new minister does not get wind of this event at all, because I don't want him to feel awkward and everything else. But I'm just like, I was like, wow, I can't believe she actually did that. That was like, I'm like, that was like either you were totally clueless or you didn't care. So.
And Darren, I have to tell you, knowing that church, I'm not surprised at all.
Right.
Right.
I know, but I'm just saying, it was just kind of like, I was like, wow.
Yeah.
So
oh my God.
I'm glad I wasn't in the mix of that. I just said, the only thing is, I wish that the person who did it and the person that was head of the worship committee, I wish someone had been there with them, because I know how the person that has the worship committee is like, and she's aggressive. So
Darren, did that play out in the open, or it happened behind closed doors and then somebody told you about it?
oh no, my mentor told me all about it.
Mm.
Yeah, it happened basically in a hallway away from people, but somewhat. But yeah, my mentor is saying, she goes, I just stood there and I didn't say a thing.
Wow.
I go, well, that was the best thing you could have done, was not say anything. But yeah, I was just like, well, and plus for my mentor, it's kind of like, well, you just crapped on me, kind of.
Yep.
You just basically said I was insignificant enough that you could just do whatever you want to, because I go to the church, but it's still, it's my day.
Right. Yes.
And I think if everything had gone right, if she had gone to the worship committee and talked to them about it, they okayed it, and then they talked to my mentor about it, my mentor probably would have been like, okay,
Sure.
But the fact that she just did it and he agreed to it, probably thinking that it had gone through the right channels. I know
Right,
that's
of
what,
course.
because he would have not in 1 minute have said that if he had thought that my mentor had not been asked first, he would have not agreed to it. Yeah. So
Wow.
we'll see. I guess he's got a background in conflict resolution. So
Do you remember his name now?
yeah, it's Terry Wise.
Yep. I know who he is. I don't know him.
So,
Is your mentor an ordained minister?
yes, she is.
Could I say a name out loud, or are you free to say who it is?
Well, Lena.
That's what I was going to ask. That's who I thought it was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, she's an elder in our church.
Oh,
and,
good. I'm glad she landed there. That's a good place
Yeah.
for her.
Oh yeah, she needed to get out of California.
Yes, she did.
Yeah, no, yeah, and she's a good person. I know not everybody likes her preaching style a little bit,
Hmm.
but that's okay. Nobody's gonna like you all the time. But the big thing is that, you know, sometimes she feels like that church treats her like she's some little measly mouse thing, and it's like she's an ordained minister, dumbass. You know, but they don't treat her like that, and I think they do that to women too often sometimes.
Yeah, it's true.
But I purposely asked for a female to be my mentor
Good.
because, well, we have to as males. We don't purposely say stuff or do stuff consciously. And I think sometimes you need that check to go, I think you need to look at this at a little bit different perspective.
Mhm.
And I think and so I'm big on that. I need people that can check me. You know, I've always liked that. You know, it's like, no, Darren, you're going down the wrong alley, or nope, I think you missed something. I like that.
Yes, we need that.
Oh, hell yeah. We're
You
not
know,
perfect.
no. Another part around that is the male-female dynamic. There too, when you're working, you have to be careful about this, okay? There's a fine line between the spiritual and the sexual, okay? And
Oh,
I
yeah.
don't know how else to say that, but it is a truth and a reality. There's like a lot of psychology behind this. And so when you're working in like a covenant spiritual relationship, it's easy to get really close to somebody, and you know, when you have to work in agreement, but then it's easy to cross the line. So you have to keep that in mind. I am a huge advocate for having, when you're a male preacher, having females fill the pulpit every now and again. And you can even be there. So, and you could do team preaching with them. And if you're a female preacher, you need to do the same thing, have males into the pulpit, either while you're there, when you're not there, because we use different words, we use different metaphors. And I'll just tell people, I use femi metaphors. I don't know, pregnancy tends to come up in Advent and whatnot. But I was fortunate enough to have a staff, I was senior minister, and I had a staff with, I had 2 ordained ministers on staff, a male and a female. And the female was our music director, and the other was our discipleship or discipling discipleship minister. And I just set up where Garrick preached once a month. I was almost always there. And there were times I would preach series and would say, okay, which day do you want? I get the opening, I get the closing. Which of these do you want? And so he would pick up on whatever topic he was most passionate about. But there were 3 times where he said, wow, I love that passage, what you were preaching and everything, but I'm wondering if he said, I think I could add to that a little bit and just kind of round it out in a slightly different way. It was like, go for it. We'll just put the series in order aside and let's get that. But, just as you pointed out, Darren, there were people who preferred Garrick to preach, and I think would have loved if he preached every Sunday, 52 weeks a year. There were those who didn't like Garrick's way of preaching, but they got to see more rounded. And I still have books here, golly, they're so old now, about like masculine language. Promise Keepers was real big back then. There was another movement, a male movement was real big back then. So I was picking up their books, trying to pick up the metaphors and the language that just isn't I don't naturally use in my vocabulary. So yeah, both backwards and forwards, something to think about.
Oh, most definitely. I mean, we associate our lives differently.
Yeah.
I mean, women experience things that men don't experience, and vice versa.
Right.
I mean, I can't speak on certain topics as well because I have never experienced it and never will.
Right.
So it's not one of those things, but
Hi, Tanya.
going,
She just said,
so,
okay.
but going back, I know I'm going reverse, but I'll tell you with the whole, because I've been married twice and I have stepdaughters in my first and my children, my biological children, my second. I've been a coach for females and males, and it doesn't make a dang bit of difference. The parents are just as much of an ass, you know. And
I know.
I'm the worst coach you could ask to be there with bully parents. I'm like this going, I just turn to them and go, look, you have a chance to shut up or get out.
Uh-oh.
And that was me. I'm like this going, you can shut up or get out. I'll go right up in the stands and face to face and just tell them, you need to either shut up or get out. We're here to root the kids on. We're not here to chastise people. And if you can't do that, you need to leave.
Yeah.
And that would be that. I don't put up with it.
We forget we forget who's who, you know, and what we're really about. The kids are playing ball, and it's our chance to build leadership, to build skills, you know, to build camaraderie and team, you know, what it's it means to be part of a team. And you know, then you get parents like this year in Aiden's team, that there was a father and he wanted his son to be one of the pitchers. And so his son, these are 10 and 11-year-old kids. And the father stood on the sidelines. I thought he was one of the assistant coaches. He was not. And he would scream at his child. And the child came off the field. They were coming in from the field. And the child was on the point of tears, and the father said to his wife, you better get over here. And I'm not sure what he said to her. And then she said, I don't know what's wrong with you today. You've been at the point of tears. Do not cry. Do not cry. You're going to get over there in the dugout. Do not cry. And you know, there no asking what's going on with you, blah, blah, blah. So I made a point after that game to go see on my way out when the little boy was by his mom, and said, you just did a great job out there today. Good for you. Good for you. You know, because he did do a great job. Not what his dad wanted, but he did a great job. So church, to bring it back there, church is the same thing. You know, what is our end goal? In church, in worship, in our lives, our interactions, and what is preventing us from being part of that goal, right?
I stopped for a while. I pulled over in Chillicothe. I'm driving again. So I'm just saying that because if for some reason I lose signal and you lose me, I apologize.
Okay, you're fine. You're fine. Cody, you're always so quiet. You
Taking it all in.
That's okay. Do you have any questions, any thoughts, anything you'd like to toss in here?
I thought it was interesting to see what kind of leader I was and what kind of church we have, and that was it was interesting that everybody was the same, and so yeah.
Well, I've been, because of your husband, I already kind of knew what I was. So
did you do that? Was that in his leadership course? Is that the one you're doing now?
yes, leadership development. No, that's the one I started to take and then realized I already took it and joined you.
Okay. The one where
So
you
that's
have
why I
to
was
do
a
your
big
dark side, is that the one you're talking about where you look at the
Yeah.
dark side? Yeah. Cody, have you had that class yet?
Well, that's part of it, but
I've not.
yeah, I had that. Like, oh, that's a great class. You will love it.
Yeah. Leadership development.
Uh-huh.
So
He's mentioned it a lot in his other classes, but
yeah. Wait a minute, no, mine is leader development. What is his? What's it called? Pastor leader, maybe? Is it pastor?
Pastoral leadership.
Yeah,
okay.
that's it. Yes. So I've got leader development. He's got pastoral leadership. You know, Darren, a lot of people hate that class and give him a lot of pushback, like having to do their dark sides. And because what he'll say, Cody, is that we all have dark and light sides, and what our greatest strengths can be some of our biggest downfalls, and what some of our biggest we see as negatives in our life can actually be our strengths. So we get this mirror, and it's trying to figure out what gets in the way, and what could potentially get in the way. And a lot of times people don't want to know what could potentially get in the way, because they've got it made, and our ego can get in the way of that. So
yeah, because sometimes being very driven and ambitious, it can be very great in building and creating a thing but it can also come back and bite you in the rear end, because you're so driven, you're so everything, you can't turn it off.
Right.
When you have to, you can't shut it down, and then you realize I'm stuck and I'm worn out and I have nothing left of myself.
Exactly.
And so it can absolutely eat you up and destroy you. I always say this. I said it's really weird, but I always tell people, I said it's kind of like Vader. I said he let his passion for what he thought was right to completely destroy him. So
yeah,
it's good. It's very good.
It is.
But yeah, my two top strengths was I'm winning over others and developer. I'm like, so shocking surprise on those two.
Yeah. It's
because I love empowering people. That's what my favorite thing in the world is to create people to do things they didn't think they were able to do, or afraid to do. But, that's not always meant, could be that, hey, that's not their thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if we're going to tell somebody this isn't your gift, we better be prepared to tell them what their gift is.
Yeah, but
right.
Also give them an opportunity to go, well, let me try this and see, or say, you know what, you might want to try this, you might like it. And if they like it, great. And if they don't, say, okay, well, we tried that, and maybe we can find something else that you would like to do.
Yeah. One of the things that would be wonderful in our churches would be to do, we've said this before, apprenticeships. But when people come in, if we said, hey, come check out, depending what kind of committees we have, come check out like the evangelism committee, work with them for, 3 months, and try the membership committee for 3 months. And so then over the course of a year, then they might be in 4 different committees, or you might try something for 8 weeks. So then they get more opportunities. In some churches, they do it over the course of 2 years. And so they're getting a taste of all of this. And at the end of each of those times, you're checking back in with them. So, what was great about it? What was horrible about it? On a scale of 1 to 10, where do you, was this satisfying? Was it not satisfying? Give me feedback. And if you keep track of that over that period of time, then you're better able and ready to say, do here. But so many of us, right, we've got our nominating committees, and we've got to fill those slots, and who's going to do this, who's going to do that. And some of the worst sentences spoken in the church is, well, I can do it if nobody else will, right? Yeah, I don't want you to do it. Yeah, if you, yeah, I want you to want to do it, or to be willing to do it. And when we create that culture, it changes the whole part of the church. Bill Roseheim. Go ahead, Darren.
I was going to say, it's like when we do stewardship, we usually do a planned thing and we go over with stewardship, but mostly what we talk about with stewardship, we mention their gifts, meaning what they can do, but mostly what we talk about is the monetary, what we need, what the church needs to survive on, what our budget, all this stuff.
Right.
And they don't talk about, they don't take time to say, hey, this is what this committee does. And this is how, and have the committee chair or whatever get up and say, well, this is when we meet. These are the times we meet regularly. This is what we do in these meetings. These are the things we talk about, and really let people know what these committees do. Because if you're coming into a church and you haven't been involved in a church, or it's been a very long time, you go, I don't know what these committees do.
Right.
And
So,
so I have no reason to do it.
so Darren, this is one of my big learnings of this past year. And that is, we have to sell outcomes. Like, why should you do this? Why do I want to do this? Compel me. And so let's take stewardship as an example. Stewardship may talk all year, but it's usually like, how's the money doing? Do we need to do something special? That's if it does that. Often stewardship starts to play around. If you're on a calendar year, they start getting together probably in September, maybe in August or so, talking about the stewardship campaign. That's often not on the calendar because we're not processual thinking into that. So then, it's just as you're saying, we do the money. Stewardship is time, talent, treasure, and testimony. All of those four, right? So we forget testimony. We've got to say that on a regular basis. What are you saying about your church? And if you've got nothing nice to say about your church, then you need to go somewhere where you can, because your testimony is part of your stewardship, what God expects. So then you do that. But why do you want to be part of stewardship? Because this is helping people see to see what can be done in the kingdom. And this is what can be done. This is what's happening because people are sharing their time, their talent, their treasure, their testimony. So let me help you with the testimony for today. We did blah, blah, blah. And we fed, I don't know, like Tanya this week, three beds. We delivered 3 beds. And that's because you shared your time, talent, treasure, testimony. So we keep that up there. And if you can wrap that into the offering message. So the offering message is not, oh, we give because blah, 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 Jesus said, and you read it out of the Bible, now give money, or because, well, we need it, we're short this month, blah, blah, blah. No, the message is, this is what we did this month. And this is what we're doing right now because of your time, talent, treasure, testimony. So we want to sell outcomes. People want to give to outcomes. They want to be part of something that matters. And in the church, we either aren't selling what matters, we're not telling that, we're not inviting people to be part of that, or we're just not doing it. And in far too many churches, we're just not doing it.
I agree. I see it with, like we have different times of the year. We have different, the only words that'll come in my head is fundraiser, but that's not what I mean. Where we have special envelopes for special giving.
Right.
Well, the thing is that we drop it on them. That Sunday and go, well, you can give this Sunday or next Sunday. But they really don't talk about them.
Right.
It's like I can't try to tell people, I said, if we're going to do something, people will give to something worthwhile, but they're not just going to give because you just put an envelope in there and say, well, it's a good idea.
Right.
How do I know it's a good idea? How do I know how they're spending my money?
Yep.
And it's things like that. I just think they fall so short.
Right.
Like I love Heifer International. I don't go around talking about it much. We have outreach that deals with it, but I've always tried to tell them, try to get that out there and, talk about it a little bit for the few weeks before we start trying to collect for it, and let them know, hey, we're going to be doing this. This is what it does. And this is why it's important, and not just drop them on that day.
Right.
And say you can give today and next week. It's just like that. People need to prepare to spend money.
Right. And the majority of people today do not carry cash or checks in their pockets.
No, I
I've
don't.
written IOUs. There have been 3 times I've written IOUs and put them in the offering plate because they haven't made it possible for me to give with my card, you know?
Yeah.
And so tell me how I can give with my card, or I know where my checkbook is. We keep the checkbook where we can grab it in case like a service person, I don't know, we had somebody, a washer person or somebody here not too long ago. I needed to write them a check because I didn't have that much cash with me. So yeah.
I've
Okay,
written
guys, we are
before.
gonna
I've
have
written-
to go.
Yeah.
But okay, so Cody, it looked like you were getting ready to say something. You get next to last word.
Okay. I was just gonna say it's sometimes when we think about tithe, people it's all money when we think about tithe, and people don't realize that tithe is of our time and of our efforts, like you said, and our talents, and we if we're not giving money, some people don't have the money to give, but they have talents to give, and that's just as important. And
Yes. Yeah. I can't
Amen.
tell you this story, but I've got a story if you were to remind me another day about a woman named Sharon who was as poor as they get, and yet she had that gift of generosity in ways you can't possibly imagine, right?
like the woman who gave two coins, it was all she had, but everybody was like, "Oh, she just gave 2 coins," and that was all she had, and that meant so much more than what they were giving of what they had left over.
And
Yeah.
let me make a point there. People want to say about, Jesus says we got to love. And so we put that into a justice mode where we have to help the poor and everything else. Notice that he didn't come in and rescue that woman. Not only did he not, say, oh, no, that's the last of your money. He didn't say, okay, guys, let's, go over there and make sure she's got food or anything like that. Right. It was about what they could give. It's that outcome, right? What are we doing? Are we giving to, or does stewardship say, give and let's do that? Or stewardship is saying this is spiritual, this is what
Yeah. Are we going through the motions, or do we actually have emotions behind what we do?
I like it. Yeah. Okay, I'm praying us out.
All
Right.
right.